Hello, career thought leaders. Good to see you here today. And we are going to be talking about how to target a job advertisement with a resume. So last week we went through some general information about how to target a resume, and we talked about kind of getting together some job descriptions, really looking at those, taking it to the 30,000-foot view and thinking, what are the big picture qualifications here? Maybe we get 3 to 5 main qualifications that they're looking for, and we build that general specific targeted resume, but it's towards a specific job, not towards a specific job ad. So it might be, last week we looked at, for a brand manager, what would that look like if we took 3 job descriptions, looked at them overall and said, these are the main qualifications that we want to target. Today, we're going to dive into after we get that good foundation document, and I want to just highlight that again, that when we get that good foundational document, then we can target it to a specific job ad, and it's going to be faster, and we're going to get faster at it every time as we go through the specifics. If you find yourself, or your client finds themselves having to do a lot of targeting to each position, it may be that their focus is too broad and they need to figure out how to get more narrow, or perhaps they need 2 different resumes, one for branded marketing and one for sales, that they can then target a little bit less every time. So the general goal is to have a strong foundational resume that's targeted towards a specific type of job, that then we can spend less time editing for each specific job ad, which we're going to go through today. So if you have any questions, or if you have any other ways that you do this, strategies that you use, please feel free to share them. I look forward to learning from all of you and learning and sharing as we go. Also, don't forget that we have our Certified Resume Writer program coming up next week. If you are a professional writer and you want to take it to the next level, this program is for you. You get feedback on 5 resumes, and it's a lifetime program, so no memberships or renewals required. The other thing, for those of you who are working specifically with graduating students or people that are early in their career, we have a session coming up in this week on Thursday for career launch resumes, and with Cheryl Minnick, Dr. Cheryl Minnick. She's delightful. If you've taken a class with her before, she's going to dump a whole bunch of quality information on you. And we are also going to do some more interactive elements and some kind of test and try this and share what you're doing, because we're all new to this COVID situation and we're all trying to figure out how to best help students mind the gap, right? How do you mind that gap if they graduated in May or they're graduating in December and things don't look promising? So we're going to be going through those a little bit more interactively, as well as sharing some examples with you. So that's where we're headed for the next couple of weeks. But today we are focused on that job ad and how do we help our clients really target a specific job advertisement. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to analyze the job ad. And there's a few different ways that we can do this. We're going to start with the low-tech way and move our way through some of the other ways that you can do this with your clients. So let's start with the kind of low-tech. So we're going to have an ad, and we're going to look in that ad for the hard skills. Those are going to be some nouns. We're going to look for key action verbs that they might be looking for, maybe some culture and the adjectives that they share. And then, of course, those soft skills, will go back to the nouns for those. We're going to start with the hard skills because that's what most people are looking for. So let's dive into an advertisement, and you'll recognize this because it's one that we looked at last week, but we're just going to dive in a little bit further into it today. So feel free to tell me what you're seeing and what you might share with this candidate. So the first part of the advertisement, and let me see if I can make this as good for you visually as possible here. That looks pretty good. Let's see, maybe I can zoom in. Yeah, excellent. All right. So what I did in this advertisement and went through and highlighted the nouns in green. So brand manager, we know that that's going to be the driving part, right? That's the job title. So then I went through and highlighted in green some of the nouns that seem to align well with that. Marketing, sales, product teams, brand strategy. Go down here to the next section. You have the voice of the customer, In pink, I started to highlight some of the verbs that I saw: synthesizing and socializing, building our brand. Then we go back to some of the nouns in the green, and I started to make notes of things that were repeating. And media channel was one of them that I saw right away was repeating. I also saw brand strategy, and I'm going to show you how I turned those red in just a minute, but let's keep going down. So on the computer, we can highlight the ones that we see. Then we could go back and look for repetition, themes, specific words, of course. You could also do this on a piece of paper. So depending on your client and how they work, going through and highlighting this in Word is not that hard. And if they like to get the paper out, write on it, see what they find as they're going through. It's a good tactile exercise for people, especially if they're kinesthetic learners. So we go through and we highlight those nouns. Like I said, I highlighted the verbs in pink. Those might be some verbs that I want to work into my resume if I don't have them in there yet. And then when we get down here into the job announcement and we get the specifics of what they're looking for, I just kept highlighting. So these are the things that we're looking for. Mostly hard skills here. I didn't see a whole bunch of what I would call soft skills, which was interesting. I could have put those in a different color, whatever works for your individual. So that's the advertisement. And we're really looking for the things that are the hard nouns, the pieces that they're going to be looking for. As I said, I started to see media channel show up, it showed up 3 different times. So I thought I'm going to go back and highlight that one. The other one that showed up a few different times was brand strategy. And you probably use this in Word, but I love to use the find and replace. So we can go up to edit, and under the editing menu, we've got find. You can also use Control F if you want to. And I can find brand strategy, and you can see that I was already doing this. So brand strategy shows up 4 times in this announcement. That's probably an important one for us to look at. So I could just go through and highlight those red. It kind of takes it out each time, and then I can highlight it red. I could pick a different color if I didn't want it to be the same color as media strategy. But I'm just going and highlighting it and hitting enter, and it's going to the next one so that I can highlight those. Then when I look at it, I can say, okay, I really, I see that brand strategy showing up a lot. Make sure that I highlight that one. I could search for other terms that I think might be repetitive just to help myself think about what is most important to target in this advertisement. Now in the blue, I did highlight some of the adjectives. These are things that I might want to put in there. I want to be careful with adjectives in my resume. I don't want to include adjectives that aren't in here that are overused, results-oriented, detail-oriented, excellent communication skills. Unless that is specifically in the advertisement, I'm not going to include that in my resume because it's going to water it down and perhaps make me not look at the right level. I expect a brand manager, to have excellent communication skills. Unless that's specifically in the advertisement, I'm not going to put that in my resume. So I'm looking for other adjectives, other ways that I can connect with their culture while not using those overused phrases. So I'm just going to take a second and see if we've got any comments or any thoughts as we're going through here. Okay, so this is our advertisement. We've gone through, we've highlighted it on the computer, highlighted in person. That is one way. It's low tech, high impact in my mind, because when you're analyzing this job ad, you're getting so much out of that. You're thinking about what are the key terms that you're looking for, what is the job really asking for, and then you can go back to the resume and make sure that you have those terms in the resume, which we're going to look at a little bit. I don't know that that's necessarily the point here, because the point is the activity of doing this. Let's look at one other system that you could use to do this same activity, to analyze the job ad. So this system, I was brought into the knowledge by Donna Svee, and I'm just going to pull up her article real quick and then put the link in the comments. So this is an article where Donna, an avid careerist, walks us through how to use this tool that I'm going to show you briefly. So I'm going to drop that in the comments here, but in case it doesn't go through the comments, you will have it in the view in front of you. And then let's go to the actual system that she's talking about, which is called Rewordify. So Rewordify is free. It's not necessarily a resume writing tool, and it scores your text into those parts that we were just talking about: nouns, adjectives, verbs. It's a little busy. Let me go back here and show you how we got here. So when you get to rewordify.com, you can put in your text. So I just copied and pasted in the job description, rewordify the text, and you want to look at the parts of speech view. Otherwise, it's giving you feedback on your writing, which I really don't care how well written the job description is, right? But I can go to parts of speech, and this parts of speech view will tell me what I've got. So the nouns are in gray, and that's telling me what nouns are in the job description. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. So let's see, does that help? So our nouns are in gray, and those are going to be the skill words, most likely. This isn't as perfect as me going through and highlighting it myself. So it depends on your person, and depends on you, what you might want to use. This might be a good one to use a couple of times just to get the feel of what it's looking for, and then you could do it on your own. We see brand manager stand out here. We see the adjective of collaboratively really pop, or adverb, customer service or customer first, some of the adjectives. I don't like the color schemes here because the nouns are muted, and for us those are probably the most important thing. And of course, our eye is going to be drawn to maybe more of the words that pop than the nouns, which are the most important. So this is another way that you could do it for free, just to look at the job description in a little bit different way. Up to you. So those are our ways of really looking at the job advertisement. Go through it, highlight it, see what the parts of speech are, see what they're emphasizing. As we showed a couple of weeks ago, one of the other ways that you can do this is with the tag crowd. So tag crowd will look at the job description and tell you what the job description has in it. So this is the job description, the tag crowd of the job description, and we can see pretty clearly too, they are the most frequently used words. You see strategy, the downfall of it is that it doesn't look at brand strategy together, just looks at brand and strategy separately, but you can still see that strategy is there as one of the big words. And we can catch maybe something that we didn't see just going through with our eye here in the tag crowd, because it makes the words bigger when they're used more frequently in the job advertisement. We're studying the job advertisement, we're seeing what's there, and then we're going to go to our resume and work in some of those words. So when we do that, we can go through and see how do we want to position those words in the document, and how do we want to make them fit into the resume. It's really going to depend on our client and the job, of course, but we're looking for how do we make it work. We don't want to put in the words in a way that they don't make sense. And as AI is being used more in the applicant tracking systems, we don't want to just shove them into a keyword list, because that is going to be of minimal help. It's better than not having them at all, but it's really going to be of minimal help to our job seeker to just shove the words in there in a keyword list. You're looking at being able to put them in there in context so that our client can get the best bang for your buck of those words. So when you do that and you put the words in, then you can do a tag crowd for the resume and see if you see some of those words in there, or you can use one of the systems that scores the resume for you. However, you could also use the low-tech way of just going through the resume and using the highlighting, again, print it out, look at it, compare it to the job description, have them both up on the screen and compare them to each other. But it's going to be pretty obvious pretty quickly how you can get those words in there. So I am going to pull up this resume, and I just want to make sure that I have all of the information deleted out of it so that you're not seeing the person's information. So let me just make sure I have this right. And maybe some of you can share your other tips and tricks with us as we go along here. All right, so let's pull up this resume and think about how we might work in these words. Let's see here. So this is our resume for our brand manager. And you'll remember some of the keywords that we were trying to get in there were brand strategy, media channel. We wanted to get in some of those words that were being used frequently throughout the resume. Project management, program management, brand management, all of those words. And we're not going to look at formatting today. That's a whole nother presentation that we've done before. So let me know if you have questions on that. But if I was going to come in and help this person update their resume, we could come to these signature qualifications. But again, I don't want to connect just to those because those are out of context. They don't show how the person actually did these things, right? So I would probably replace this oral and written communication because again, that's not in the job description. It's overused. We don't need it. So I'd probably replace this with something more specific. Brand strategy, maybe media channels. This person does have PR experience, so we could talk about media channels maybe a little differently than what the brand management position is applying for, but we could get those in here if we wanted to. Let me see. I'm going to try this really quickly. So bear with me. We're going to see if we can get these for you side by side. All right. You're going to see behind the curtain for a second, and we're going to see if we can make this happen. All right. So you should be able to see both of these documents side by side. And hopefully you can. And when we do that, then we could see, okay, so we've got brand manager, we've got customer was also one of the words that kept coming up here. And that might be just a semantics issue because our client here has used a lot of the words of audience. So when we do that, we don't get as much of a connection, right? Because they were talking in audience, this person's talking in terms of customers. So I could come in here and search for the word audience. Oh, I only got that in there once now. So I could come in and change audience to customer. I actually came in earlier and changed one of these to customers. I was testing this. Oh no, customer doesn't show up. So that's definitely one we would want to be able to work in there somehow. So I could look at this point that says audiences and simply change it to customers for this job, right? Doesn't have to be a very hard process, especially if we have the good foundation of the resume, because we're just doing some matching of the words. Got to make sure it works, got to make sure it's in context and it makes sense, but we don't need to overdo it. I'm wondering if we have the word channel in here at all. No. So that would be something where maybe we could do a match, but we might also have to go back to this client and say, you know, tell me about a time when you helped someone get their information into a media channel, or let's look at this job description, see how it's referring to media channels and get something into the resume that speaks to that. You can see we have some space available in this resume, which is great because I'm just working with this client to get some information in. So there is space to put some of this in here. The other thing that was coming up is this kind of tracking, testing, reporting. And we'd want to make sure that we can get some of that in there. There's not much in there now, so we'd have to go back and ask some questions about that and get that in here. There's a lot of brand purpose, brand thinking. We can come into the resume, kind of look at where brand is showing up. We've got 21 mentions of brand, so we're doing good there. But we might want to think about, so here we've got brand messaging. They've used brand promise instead in the job description, so I might change messages to promise, brand promise. We've got brand personality. So again, we could change that one to promise. We don't need to change all of them, just a few to make the connection and show that we've done what they're looking for us to do. And we can make those connections fairly easily. We would definitely want to make sure that brand strategy is in here because that is one that keeps coming up. Let's see how smart word search is. Nope, it's not going to work. So the navigation on Word is not going to let me search for brand strategy. I'd have to do that more manually, but I could just search strategy. I know strategy is in there. No. Okay, so we'd have to get brand strategy in there and make sure that we're sharing that. So actually, instead of this exceptional skills, I might put brand strategy in there because it's such a big one, and then make sure I get it down here further. So here, this person was talking about advancing the brand regionally. We might even say advanced brand strategy to get that visibility, figure out a way to get the strategy word, brand strategy word in there if that is part of what we're looking to do. Once we have the job description highlighted and thought about some of those words that are showing up over and over again, we can go into the resume and put those in where they belong. Sometimes it's going to be that word exchange, and sometimes it might be thinking about when did I do that? When can I have an example of that and put it into the resume as a new thought, new bullet point perhaps. Might have to take something else out to get that in there, and depending on how much space we have in our document. And that's where the strategy of the resume really comes in. And when I'm working with a client, always thinking about saving those bullet points. Even if you take it out of the resume, save it somewhere so that if it's in another job description, you can just put it back in. And as they start targeting their resume towards these job descriptions, they'll start seeing some similarities. They'll start getting some rhythm so that they're not having to do the same thing over and over and over again because they're targeting the same jobs. Again, if they find themselves having to target it differently each time, they might need to work on their focus. Yeah, and so Cindy, you're asking if strategic is the same as strategy, and it won't show up that way in most applicant tracking systems. So if brand strategy is in the job description, we need brand strategy in the resume. So I'm going to just show you how this shows up on SkillSyncer. I'm not advocating necessarily that you use this. I think there's some pros and some cons, which we'll talk about here as we look at it. So as in SkillSyncer and uploaded the resume and the job description, we had a 41% match, so not great. However, there's some good things about this system because it does show me over here on the right the how frequently that word is showing up. I found that in the job description kind of myself, right? So I don't need the system to tell me that. The thing that I don't love about this is the huge long list of words kind of makes it hard to prioritize, right? Going through each one of these words would get kind of mind-numbing. And I can do the same thing, just highlighting the job description and looking at it here. And it missed some of, like media showed up 4 times, but it was actually media channel that showed up. So we don't know if the applicant tracking system would be set up to look for media or media channel. But since media channel itself as a phrase showed up 4 times, I would actually want to get media channel into this resume for my client, not just media. So, there's some goods and some bads. The system is doing some things for you, but it's not going to do everything for you. And a lot of this you could do on your own if you're highlighting the resume. So pros and cons. Now, when we're thinking about the actual words, and Cindy, you just brought this up. So in that job description, they use B2B and B2C, whereas most resume writers would use B, the number 2, and then B, and B, the number 2, and then C. in this resume, I would want to get in B2B and B2C just the way they have it, although I wouldn't capitalize the two. We don't need to do that. But I would use it the way that they have it because that's what's going to show the match. So this is what most people fail to understand about the job description and the applicant tracking system in their resume is that it has to be exact. So if it says brand strategy, I need a brand strategy, not strategic. That is our challenge, is to get those words and phrases in there as they match up to the actual job description, so that we can get as good of a match as possible. Now, when we're doing this, we go through, we highlight the words, we go through our resume and we start making those matches. We're looking to either exchange the word or get the word in there in context if we can, because again, just putting it in the keyword list, if the system is using AI, just putting it in the keyword list is not going to score as high as putting it in the context, writing a sentence about it, writing a statement about how you've used it, and of course how it delivered some results, if at all possible. So hopefully that's helpful. I think the side-by-side view for a client is really powerful. They can do that on paper, they can do that on their computer, probably can't do it as well on their mobile phone. So they're going to have to get out that desktop or get out that laptop or print it out so that they can highlight their job description, really looking at those hard skills, those words, and what are, what is most important, and then get back to their resume and do the same thing. Really kind of search for those terms, which you can use using the find in Word. It's a good feature, right? Control F is your friend in Word because you can do that find. You might be able to use the replace feature. So for instance, if we wanted to go through and replace all of the word audience with the word customer, I'd be a little bit careful with find and replace because we want to make sure that it works in context. So use the find, replace carefully if you're doing that word match, and then make sure that you're getting in the other words in statements if they're not already in your resume. So words that are more valuable in the resume, I am very I'm very skeptical because when we looked at JobScan in one of our other sessions, and here we were just looking at SkillSyncer, and it didn't say media channel, even though it was really clear to me that media channel was repeated 3 times, not just media. They're just systems, and we're just people. You can use both to get the best of both worlds, but to me, thinking about looking at it strategically from a human perspective, I can make sure the words match, which I know the system thinks is important, and I can make sure that the strategy is on. So in the JobScan demo I did inside our Facebook group, so our Career Thought Leaders Facebook group, I went through all the demos, and it makes me a little bit leery because one of the positions that I demoed, maybe not during that demo, but a different demo, it saw design as this really important word, even though design was part of the department name, not a part of the job function at all. So the department name said design, but the job was not a design job. So it said that I was really missing this important keyword of design, even though when I look at the job description strategically, I said that isn't a critical keyword, it's just the department name. Always taking it with a grain of salt. Do I want to have design in there? Yeah, probably, because it's the design group, but is it one of the highest important keywords? I don't know. So yeah, Sarah, I'm not sure. I think the combination of the two is powerful if you and your client want to use that technology. And we went through those in the group in terms of how much they cost and what do you do with that. Don't let the technology undermine your strategic thinking. We have to think critically and think strategically and not think that the technology is going to do it all for us, because it doesn't. It's just technology. It's reading the way that it thinks it needs to read, but every applicant tracking system is going to be programmed differently, and their scoring systems are not necessarily mirroring what you would get out of an applicant tracking system. I think that may be the challenge that we have and that our job seekers have, is that we think this scoring system is doing exactly what the applicant tracking system would do, and that's not necessarily true. It's just giving us their best guess, and we can take that and use it for what it's worth. So hopefully that was good for you and your clients and thinking about going through and targeting your resume. If you have other things that you would tell a job seeker to do, I'd love to hear those and have you share them so that we can share them with the job seekers that might come and see this video. And we will be back next week. Hopefully we're going to be looking at job search trends, because we're kind of moving into our trends season as we look forward to our Career Jam annual trends event in November. So we will see you back here again next Tuesday. If you have thoughts about what we should cover or questions that we can answer, please do let me know.